Welcome to the Draft Professor channel, home of Epic Mock 26, April 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Draft Professor, everybody. My name's Jim, joined today by Randall and Owen. Owen, it's great to see you. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. You know, it's a phenomenal day. We're gonna do this again. This was a gag I did on Wednesday, and we had a fire detector problem. But today I took the batteries out, so we're okay. Because this being a Buffalo Bills podcast and a Buffalo themed podcast, we have to celebrate the Sabres breaking the playoff drought.
Yeah. Let's go. Next order of business, other than winning the cup, is we need a Sabre for the Zamboni. Did you see the mammoth Zamboni that came out today?
That's hot.
As I distracted. Yeah, they made their Zamboni look like a woolly mammoth, and we need to do that in Buffalo.
Like a buffalo, like a charging buffalo as a Zamboni, that'd be pretty cool.
Yep. Right.
Yeah, I'm
good
down
celebration. Oh, and I love that. Thank you for doing that, because I'm so
on Wednesday
we broke that drought, man.
I did it because Newt's a Red Wings fan, and we had just broken the 100-point streak, and I had to dig it into him. And I forgot to take the batteries onto the smoke detector. It's up here, and it went off immediately at the start of the podcast.
Oh, well, it's good to know that I am not the only one that when a smoke detector goes off, I just unplug it from the wall.
Yeah.
Like, there's just something about that. Like, if it goes off in the middle of the night, I'm not changing its batteries. No. I just want the noise to stop.
Yeah, it's not even like I have batteries. I'm just not going to put them in there. I'm just
right.
Why?
Yep. Oh, I have a whole box of batteries. It's not a battery supply issue. It's what am I going to do at 3 a.m. issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And it only beeps. It beeps from midnight to 5 a.m. only.
Yes. Yeah, it's never in the middle of the day. You are exactly correct. So with that being said, at daylight savings, remember to change the batteries in your smoke detector. Welcome to the Draft Professor. This is a Bills Mafia FCS podcast. So Jerry Ostrowski can't be with us today, but one of the things that Jerry was pointing out to us a couple weeks ago backstage is that some of Brandon Beane's best draft picks, Spencer Brown, Taron Johnson, Christian Benford, came from FCS, whereas most draft coverage, we're covering Power 4 players. And even, as I'm preparing all the summer scouting, everything is so focused on Power 4. And Owen and Randall have watched some players. Randall focused on some skill players. Owen focused on some linebackers and DBs. But Randall, you've got a pretty good story to tell about a tight end, don't you?
Oh yeah. Going through the FCS, I'm curious if I can send him a DM and get some more info. But an interesting prospect who was coveted when he was coming out of school was Logan Compton. He committed to Baylor. He had some run-in with a case where he got in an car accident, and went into some trials that he had to go through that. But really, he just hydroplaned in a car, and it definitely put him back 2 to 3 steps in being able to decommit from Baylor. Got to sign with Houston. Went through all the court filings for there during the Houston 2 years. Ended up getting his case dismissed, rightfully so, and then kind of just had a 3-step back moment in his career, and now is had good production in Incarnate Word, is a good blocker, can run some routes, and I hope he can get back to what people saw in Baylor and potentially get a chance at the NFL.
Nice. So I love hearing the stories like that about players. Owen, was there a FCS player that you saw that you liked?
I have a couple. I think I highlighted at least 4 that I'm a big fan of, especially for this team. One is more of an obvious option. He's up there. Was even voted as CB3 in our Family Feud episode we did a few weeks ago. But I also have one that is, if the system was the old Sean McDermott system, I'd like him a little bit more, but still a good player. So I did linebackers and DBs. I'll start with the linebackers just because they're a bit closer. The line of scrimmage will work our way back. This was a name that was brought to my attention through our group chat. He got a top 30 visit with the Green Bay Packers. That's Jaden Duggar from Louisiana, the Raging Cajun, which is still one of the best college football nicknames out there. Love it. He popped a lot because of his RAS scores. He stands at 6'4", so 6'4", 242 pounds. He only did 17 reps at the bench press, but that's fine. I think that's the only blemish you're really going to see on his RAS sheet. He had a 7.27 for the vertical, which was a 34.5-inch vertical, 10-inch broad, 4.6 in the 40-yard dash with a 1.6-yard, 10-yard split, and a 4.25 shuttle and 7 flat 3-cone, which are all in the green and the greats. So he ended up getting a 9.6 overall RAS, and you can see that when you watch Louisiana. Like, he is absolutely flying around. I'd love to get, I don't know if I have his, so he has 35-inch arms.
Oh, wow.
He looks long and lengthy and rangy. He had 4 sacks this past season, both from blitzing off the edge and blitzing up the middle. And a lot of the time, his best clips came from stepping downhill, triggering downhill, filling space, closing gaps, closing the yardage between him and the ball carrier, and making strong tackles in space, using all that length to really make some good outside of his framework tackles. He had 1 interception, but I'm going to be honest with you, he reminds me a lot of Dorian Williams, whereas you're going to want him attacking downhill, finding those gaps, attacking seams, or just getting out into space and chasing down ball carriers laterally along the line of scrimmage. He's a really good, rangy, lengthy athlete. You don't want him dealing with a ton of the, stack and shed against interior offensive linemen. You want him to be a bit more clean and coming around, so like maybe more of that weak side linebacker or the cleanup specialist type player in this defense. I think in years past we would have had him pegged as like the backup will linebacker, but I do think he could add some muscle to his frame. He is a bit leaner. He is 6'4", 240. So I do think he can get up to that 250 range and add a bit more muscle. You saw that with his tape, and it's reflected in his bench press numbers. But when you have longer arms, that also kind of negatively impacts on the bench press, so I didn't put too much stock into that. So kind of curious how you guys are interested with more of a long, rangy type linebacker who could be like a hot edge hybrid type, but maybe struggles a bit more with the downhill block deconstruction elements of the game that we're kind of transitioning a bit more to with this current defense.
Nice. So, Randall, have you evaluated Duggar?
No, I have not, actually. But very interested. I like the length. I like the ability to attack. Dorian Williams, obviously, is somebody who we moved into inside linebacker. So if it's something like that, if you're looking at a PFA or UDFA or 7th rounder to back him up, I mean, that's something I think Buffalo is looking for.
Yeah, you're definitely going to get him later day 3. His pass coverage is not, he's not comfortable when he's backpedaling or working in the space backwards. His one pick was mostly the quarterback just staring down a slant. He was able to kind of jump in front of that, but a lot of his pass coverage reps, he looks very uncomfortable kind of working in that space, but he tested good enough to make you think that he can maybe man up some guys. He had some good reps as like an out wide man coverage player on running backs when he was able to just turn and run with them as a vertical threat. But when asked to kind of manage the zone coverage stuff, he looked a lot more comfortable as a blitzer than he was in coverage on third downs.
Yeah, I see a lot on Duggar, like just coming through the Draft Professor feed. So between the Draft Professor group chat and what comes through the Draft Professor feed, I see a lot on Duggar. But like that wasn't a player we did scouting reports on. I think right around Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl time is when I really first saw his name being mentioned a lot. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that we had ever done like any scouting reports on him on the channel or anything like that. Randall, do you have another skill player for us?
Yeah, my first guy, I'll talk about one guy that I really, really liked that's interesting as like an RB3 is Josh Pitzenberger from Yale. He's an interesting prospect at 6 foot, 220 pounds, a bowling ball-like guy. At his pro day, he had a 4.64. He has a 35-inch vert. He sub 7.3 cone, almost 10 foot broad, and 20 on the bench. Definitely seeks contact to run through defenders and keeps going. He's got 3.5 3 yards after the contact and he goes for it. He carries 2 to 3 guys on him. He's good at downfield running and really good red zone running. So somebody like James Cook and sometimes Ray Davis, who can't just power through to get those 2 to 3 yards just to get it through so we don't have to push Josh through, is somebody that Pitzenberger could get through. I love his game. He's a really good blocker. He doesn't have great speed or explosion, but if you're sticking at the RB3 spot, he's that bruiser that can outside run and inside run, but typically just inside run carry dudes. He's very impressive. He does not fumble the ball, and he had 1,600 rushing yards and 19 TDs this year.
Do you think he's a better prospect than Frank Gore?
Ooh. Similar. But Frank Gore I think Frank Gore ran well in the NFL when he got his shot. So now I'm kind of on to Frank Gore in the NFL and what he's doing there. But I think they could be comparable in that aspect.
And Buffalo usually keeps one running back on the practice squad, or
Right.
are we keeping two? Like I'm trying to think back. It's usually just Gore on the practice squad the last 2 years, right?
I believe so.
That might change though this year because that was a lot of McDermott working with Bean to kind of, because that was also just the way they like to structure their roster, where they carried less linebackers, they'd carry more D linemen, they'd carry less. Where they carry only 5 wide receivers at a time. Where now we're kind of like, we'll see how they like their positional stacking now, because there might be a situation where you want an additional running back that maybe could be a flex player, whether it's going to be a power back or you can maybe flex into some like 2-back stuff. And if you have depth, why would you get rid of it, kind of thing?
Right.
I mean, they've always carried more than that. Like last year was the first time they didn't bring in another back, and Frank Gore was like the sole back in a lot of preseason games. So I wouldn't be opposed to bringing in another body, and maybe might take on another guy in the practice squad with Joe Brady kind of manning the reins on that now.
Oh yeah, I think just good roster management is you need 6 running backs to get you through preseason. I remember a year about 3 years ago where literally every running back on Buffalo was injured in the preseason, and we had to sign 2 guys off the street just to get through the game. And
When was that?
So you remember when that happened, or
I kind of vaguely do. Yeah.
It was.
Was it
may
when?
have even. It
Was
may
it
have
been
even
longer?
been before COVID. It was
Yeah.
right.
Was it the Zach Moss Devin Singletary time when they were a duo?
Was that
It
one
may
where he
have
had like
been.
Raheem Blackshear, and then he was popping off a bit, and then he was one of those, I think he might have been the guys that we signed because he ended up doing really well for us, and then the
Right,
Giants
and then
snagged
went
him
to-
when we released him.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah. So anyway, like having 5 or 6 running backs in camp is needed. So Randall, I love that shout out. Owen, do you have another player?
Yeah, we'll do my last linebacker of this group, and we're gonna go back to Incarnate Word. I know Randall talked up their tight end earlier. I'm gonna go with a linebacker, Declan Williams. He was a transfer, I believe, from Rhode Island. He tested in with an RAS score of an 8.62, where he had a lot of yellow there, but his 40-yard time and his speed times were in the green. So he's a 6 foot. 6'05", 236-pound linebacker. He did 28 bench press reps, just south of 31-inch arms and 9.5-inch hands. His verticals are 34.5, a 9-foot broad, 4.68 40 with a 1.58 10-yard split, and then 4.32 shuttle, 7.13 cone. He's a player that was another one where, and this is what you kind of want from your linebackers at this level of competition, is that you're not looking for lesser athletes that can bruise against these linemen, because these aren't NFL strength offensive linemen. These aren't, complex power run games where you're going to have overwhelming force, and if you can stand up to them, you're like, it's going to translate. What we really want is to see guys who are a bit rangier athletically, who can make some high athletic plays and look like the best athletes on the field. With Duggar, he was clearly obvious to that. You could tell he was flying around, hair on fire, could lay some big hits, but mostly was just impressive with them on the ground he could cover against these lesser athletes. Williams is another one that, while he isn't the rangiest, I wouldn't say he has the range or the length of Duggar. He's a little bit lower than he is. Duggar, I think, could knock on the door of being maybe even around 4, round 5 kind of player. in my grading scale just because he has so many athletic tools and so many good reps of downhill play. Whereas Declan, he's a lot more, again, we're going back to that cleanup role where he's asked to flow with the ball, attack, and close on make tackles. He's a bit better when it comes to using his hands and leveraging and popping these offensive linemen and playing through them to get to their gaps more often than not. Whereas Duggar was more a flow to the space, avoid contact, dip and rip kind of guy. He will play. Williams will play a bit more through the body. But he's also a good athlete, explosive, can close gaps, can really plant his foot and attack downhill. He's somebody I'm really interested in. Who may be able to play some of that more Mike role in this defense because he has that more attacking downhill scheme. He's not nearly, like I said, the athlete or has the raw skill of athletic talent of a Duggar. But he's one of those guys similar to the Joe Andreessen mold where you like his compete, you like his competitiveness in the middle. He will bang, but he also has some of that pop in his athleticism that you really do like, and is a bit more fluid in coverage and a very smart zone coverage player at the linebacker position.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Love that.
Yeah. And I love it. We're talking about players that haven't been discussed too much during this draft cycle. So I'm sitting here, I'm excited. Randall, do you have another skill player for us?
I do, and I believe, I don't know what Bills reporter just released it, but that we actually did a top 30 visit for Justin Jolie, which was interesting. So I guess that's a conversation potentially maybe Hawes moving into fullback. But at that point, here's a couple. I'll go do a couple tight ends. I'll start with this one, which is kind of almost like a bad porn name, and Jed Castles in Abilene Christian. I don't know why they named him Jed, but Jed Castles is either that or it's like an alter ego. But I believe he's got 3 or 4 top 30 visits. Abilene Christian. He's 6'7", 245 pounds. Texas Tech for 1 year, Abilene Christian for 4. 3 years of good production out of Abilene Christian. Splits blocking 50-50. He has about 200 yards per year, but he's had 9 touchdowns in the last 3 years. He looks all of 6'7". He towers over everyone in the games. He's a decent route runner for his size and moves pretty fluidly. He's got very long range and long arms for a gigantic catch radius. Super, super interesting. He's got some decent blocking to his game, but at 6'7", comes in with a high pad level, so he can get moved around a little bit. Like 6'7" and 245 is a little bit, he doesn't look 245 pounds, a little bit leaner, so he can get moved around a little bit. But he can block. He has a decent strength profile, and he has a large catch radius and a big red zone threat. I compare him to Justin Jolie light, like a very light version of him. And he's got, I believe the Packers did a top 30 visit for him. There's a decent, like 2 or 3 teams, but I know the Packers visit him. But he's an interesting prospect that I really do think he's going to get an NFL look.
Nice. And ultimately, one of the things that I like to look at is what tight ends does Buffalo put on the practice squad, right? Because Buffalo seems to, like the players on the practice squad tend to have a 2-year life cycle. Like Gore has been on the practice squad for 2 years. I would not suggest that we keep him on for a 3rd year. Like if you've been on the practice squad for 2 years and you can't crack the 53,
yeah,
let's reset and bring in somebody new. So
who's the guy that came up? He was basically a slot receiver, correct? Who was it? The tight end. The tight end that was coming up, that was getting elevated.
Oh, it was
Latu. Yeah.
And then Davidson, right? Because Zach Davidson was on the practice
until this year. Yeah.
Right, but like there's a couple of positions where I keep an eye on because, for example, at tight end specifically, okay, Dawson Knox may have 2 years left on the roster. So if there's a tight end like this, where, okay, he's on the practice squad, he's got to add some mass.
Mm-hmm.
That's a position that tends to develop slowly. Better to develop slowly on the practice squad than on the back end of the 53.
All day.
Owen, do you have another player for us?
Yeah, I just have one quick question about this 6'7" tight end we were talking about. Do you know?
Yeah.
When watching him, did you notice a lot of 3 point stance versus 2-point stance with his alignment, or how flexible he would be kind of getting lower down. And because with a lot of those guys who have that kind of height issue, it becomes a flexibility in hips and hip flexibility in the knees situation with pad level, and not just in route running, but with blocking and everything. Did he feel flexible enough, or was he a bit more stiff when it comes to getting into his stance and getting out of his stance kind of thing?
No, he looked fluid getting in his stance, but they didn't ask him to go into a 3-point stance or get down, really. He was kind of in line. When he was in line, he kind of looked like he was running routes, and then he'd come up and block. A lot of his blocking was outside run, so if he's in line, he'd come outside and be a lead blocker, or start from the slot and come in that outside. They didn't ask him an insane amount of blocking. When I looked at him, it was a lot more route running, and then when he came in those outside runs, but statistically, it's 50%, about 50-50 in those.
Okay,
but he looked
Yeah,
fluid. He looked fluid in his ability to get move and get out of his stance and stuff like that. So I think that's viable coming into the NFL, where he can do that and learn for sure. But yeah, tall guy.
Gotcha. All right, so my next play, we're gonna move into the corners now. I have 2 more corners and a safety left to highlight here, and the first guy, he's going to be the highest ranked guy, I think, of my group, consensus-wise, and that's Charles Demings from Stephen F. Austin. He's somebody who was at the Senior Bowl. I've seen him as a rankings in the high hundreds, 160s even. I like him a lot as a day 3 option. He's another guy that we're going to see with a lot of corners at this level is if they're really strong athletes, they're not going to be the most refined guys technically, because they're just able to bump and run with everybody at this level. So Demings definitely does have some flaws there when it comes to really mirror matching guys, following them, not falling for too many double moves just because he wants to be aggressive and knows he can recover because he has a lot of that recovery speed at this level. He's long and lengthy. I have his RAS here in front of me. So he's 6'1", 193 with 32-inch arms, over 10-inch hands, 42-inch vertical, which is a 9.91, 11-inch broad, which is 9.71. Wow. He ran a 4.41 with a 1.53 10-yard split, so an overall 9.97 unofficial RAS score. A guy that athleticism shows up on the film, and you can definitely take some stuff away from that because his athleticism shows up on the field. It's not just an underwear Olympics type guy, and he also shows some natural ball skills, ability to attack the ball, track it, make adjustments to it. A lot of those plays where you're like, okay, that's going to be something that no matter what level of competition you're at, that's a lot of on you as a player, your instincts as a football player showing up to make plays on the football. He's aggressive. He's not afraid to come up and tackle. I do think that he was aware that he was one of the best players on the field at any given point and knew that he could be the guy that swung games for his team. Now, Stephen F. Austin, for some reason, did this weird thing where they would rotate him off the field at times, even though he was their stud. That they made some weird coaching decisions there, but I never saw an issue with him when it came to needing to be subbed out for packages. He wasn't the most comfortable in zone coverage, especially when it came to feeling out and sensing out routes. But I do think as a natural just man coverage type bump and run corner who has a good feel for what his athleticism can allow him to get away with, you might need to rein him in a bit, but I do think he's a guy that if you can invest in him, an earlier day 3 pick, especially in this defense where you're asking for a lot more man coverage reps, a lot of guys to come in and be that higher upside athleticism, let them come up there and be athletes and allow the other guys to play more freely. You'll look and find a guy that you really like in here with Deming. So he's definitely a guy that's going to be higher up my list. I think at the end I'll rank all 5 guys in order of how I would want them, but I think he's clear and obviously the number 1 of this group.
So, Randall, where is Demings for you right now?
Early day 3 as well. I'm a fan of Demings. I think Owen pretty much nailed it right there. Early day 3 for me. It might be little. I mean, I would take a corner at 126. I wouldn't really scoff at that. So, yeah, at 126 would be ideal.
Randall, do you have another skill player for us?
I do. So I would believe, other than, by the way, Bryce Lance, because Bryce Lance is an FCS player, but, we've talked about him enough. He's a top 100 player, as we've discussed. But the number 2 receiver that I believe in the FCS is Colby Katzis from Northern Arizona. He is a solid, quick receiver. 2025, he had 60 catches, over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. He had 2.8 yards per route run. His pro day, he ran a 4.43 He ran a 1.52 10-yard split, which was really, really good. A 36.5-inch vert, over 10-foot broad, and a 6.903 cone. Super athletic dude. Has decent catch radius with his arm length as well. He's a move-around Z-type wide receiver. His vertical speed is dynamite with his burst. In press man, he can make a quick move off the line, and his initial step plus his vertical speed can just get it one for sure. He's really, really good at ball locating and readjusting the ball on those go routes and whatnot. You could tell because Northern Arizona, watching his gains, is that defensives plan for him, constant bracking him a lot and just trying to shut him down. They knew that he was a legitimate receiver. Decent blocker at 6'1", 185. Can block in the slot or even come in line. My only knock for him, which he would probably start on the practice squad, is he really does need to fine-tune his route running and footwork, which he can work on. His stem work is average. He takes a couple extra steps. He really just needs to learn how to plant and go and commit to the stem to really open himself up. And if he does that, I think if he had that, I think he'd be a 6th-round pick, to be honest with you. But he's a good receiver, and I'm a fan of him.
Nice. And you think UDFA is the more likely path?
Yeah. He needs to work on his footwork and his route running for sure. But it's so noticeable, his 1.52 split and his 4.43 speed. What he does on his go routes is mega impressive, and would absolutely love it.
So Brian, we need to give Brian a lot of credit because
yes,
Brian,
I hope I'm doing him right now.
Yeah. So Brian is the one that supplied the list. When Jerry Ostrowski suggested this topic, Brian, within 30 minutes, had the player list to Jerry and I. Like, it was dumb luck probably that Brian and I were on Twitter at the same time. But Brian, much, much respect to you. Owen, who is your next player that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so this is a player that actually kind of scratches an itch for me a lot. Even though I don't know how well he fits into the current defensive scheme, he would have fit a lot better into the old one. But is somebody like, for a priority free agent, I'm kind of jumping all over this guy, and that's Gerard Washington from South Carolina State. He is a 6 foot, 190-pound corner with just north of 30-inch arm length, which is that'll play. We'll take that. It's not something like it's not jumping off the screen. Demings was about 32, if you remember. 30 is pushing it, but I think that's good enough. But that's kind of where the positives with his profile end. Well, he ran a 4.45 40-yard dash with a 1.55 split, so he's got some speed to him. But 32-inch vertical, 9-inch broad, both of those are sub 2.5. And then the 4.52 shuttle, 1.15 percentile, and a 7.53 cone, which is a 0.70 percentile. So he's a 4.33 RAS type player. I thought he performed a lot better athletically on film. Like, he even played against like South Carolina, and there was another team again. USF, South Florida. He played in games against Power 4 competition or G5 competition, and didn't look out of place, especially when it came to some more of the zone drops where he was asked to plant and come downhill and have some more of that quick twitch, get downhill and make a play on the ball. He does have the speed to carry guys in man. I know he did a good job in South Carolina on that, especially when it came to some of the other receivers, not called Nick Harbor, that he was asked to kind of shadow. They overall did a good job as a secondary in that game, I felt like. So for me, he's a player that plays really hard, is aggressive, almost to a fault. Like, you see that a lot with these guys who are good athletes at this level. Like, he will, in zone coverage, bite a bit too much on the underneath stuff and allow stuff over the back, over top of him. He does rely on his recovery speed a little too much for me. But he will come down and stick his nose in as a run defender. I do love his tenacity with that. I love his his tackling. He's willing to go out there and put a helmet into a guy's knee. So he's a guy that I think will come in, has a good athletic profile, especially with that 4.45 40-yard dash, and looked good on film with that stuff. He looked a little more fluid, a little bit better with the side-to-side athleticism than his testing numbers will suggest. He would have been a guy for me that if you had a more zone-heavy scheme that you could coach him up in a lower zone and not allow him to be more aggressive, jumping up in the flats and things like that. You would have liked a bit more. But as a potential player that could maybe be another sub-package guy, special teams, long-term developmental guy, I think Gerard Washington's someone that with his mentality and with some of the athletic skill set he does show, I do like him as a guy that can come in and be at least a camp body at the worst.
Yep. And corners which can tackle are
Mhm.
always desired.
Yes.
So
Mowgli's a big
yes.
fan.
Yes.
Yeah, no kidding.
So
Um,
Randall, who do you have next?
All right, my number 3 technically receiver out of the FCS is Daniel Sobkowitz, Illinois State. 6'2", 200 pounds, 3 years of 1,000-yard production, 41 career touchdowns. 2025, he had 82 catches, 1125, and 19 touchdowns. 2.38 yards per route run, 5.8% career drop rate. Really fluid in his route running, twitched up at the line of scrimmage, and his releases are really, really solid. Has a good burst to separate, uses hesitation to draw corners in to take them off the pass. Deceleration is really solid, and he can dip those hips as well when he does it. He's got a really top-notch deep comeback. He sells a go route very well at the stem, takes about 4 steps and decelerates right there. Gets a lot of separation out of it. Really good hands, obviously a touchdown machine. He definitely has a shot in the league. His only concern is his long speed is the issue. He ran a 4.63 40. He's got a 1.53 10-yard, which that shows his initial burst, but he can't keep it. But he's an athletic guy. His pro day, 37.5-inch vert, over 10-foot broad. He had a 6.613 cone, which was great. So he's a very good overall athlete, except for the long speed, and he's got production to show for it.
Do you see him as a boundary X receiver?
Yeah, I think he had good strength. He's got good press releases in fire feet and a little bit of good hand fighting as well. And he handled most of the outside at Illinois State. So yeah, I think so. And I mean, his production shows it. His deceleration and his ability to separate works as well. Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. And then is that my internet or Owen?
Nope, I hear you.
Fantastic.
I got a couple extra. I can go.
Yeah. So why don't you do your
yeah.
next one?
Okay, so shout out to champions. Yes, Justin Watson is a good one. Shout out to champions because I'm going to talk about a Monmouth player, and Jeff Brady, who is the owner of Do Champions, went to Monmouth, became a UDFA in the NFL. But Jack Neary in Monmouth, 6'3", 245 pounds, fifth-year senior at Monmouth, all of them. Receiving production out of the 4 years, the last 2 years, he had 9 touchdowns and 450 yards, which was relatively good. In 2025, he only had caught 13 balls, but caught 4 touchdowns. So he was very efficient in red zone catching, a lot of blocking. His pro day, he ran a 4.87. He had a 32-inch vert and had 22 bench, but he's a very good inline blocker. He reminds me of Jackson Hawes a little bit, where he's a top-tier blocker that the NFL might be looking for, and then he can figure out his receiving later. He runs like a easy seam route to catch. He can run some ins and outs. Some crossers are easy because he's a bigger body guy that can out leverage you. But his blocking is absolutely incredible. Got a really good lower body strength to anchor down in the line of scrimmage. And his pins and pulls are very Reggie Gilliam-like. Moves quickly across the line and hits somebody when he's moving to open up that gap. Was really, really good for his Monmouth running back in blocking. And was a good pass blocker as well. Took on really good pass blocks. So that's a guy that I think has a good shot at the NFL because tight ends are now back into blocking is almost number 1 to pass catching number 2 now with how it's evolving. And he's a guy that could get a shot for sure.
Do you see him as a tight end or a fullback?
I think he could do either or. I think because he does remind me of Jackson Hawes, right? And maybe Jackson Hawes is taking that route in being a fullback tight end hybrid sort of situation. So I think that's an option that he could certainly do.
Okay.
His blocking's incredible.
Nice. So, and one thing that we were pointing this out on other Draft Professor podcasts, but it's worth mentioning here as you were pointing out about the blocking tight ends. A significant amount of the running game is what we would say, like, how many gaps does the defense have to defend? So if you have 5 offensive linemen, there's 6 gaps for the defense. If you add a tight end, we would call that a 6-man surface with 7 gaps. And if you add in another tight end, that would be a 7-player surface with 8 gaps that the defense has to account for. So the blocking tight ends that Randall was just mentioning are really critical to having an effective run game. There was Jackson Hawes, I think, was one of the top 2 or 3 reasons that James Cook had the year that he did last year.
Man, agreed.
Yep. So Randall, I think Owen only has one more guy. So why don't you give at least one more that you have?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll do a wide receiver. Quick shout out, because I know Brian's in the chat, so I want to tell him who I got to watch. I got to watch the NDSU running back Barika Pinu is a guy that 5'10", 213 could work out. And then Julius Lockridge from SDSU, 6', 215 pounds, that could end up getting on a practice squad as well. But for my next receiver, I've got from Lehigh, Jeffrey Jamil is an interesting short slot guy that is a gadget / kick returner, punt returner, and can work the slot really well at 5'8", 185, so still has some weight on him, but a little shorter. Lehigh all 4 years. 2025, he had 73 catches, over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. He had 8 touchdowns the year before, too, so 16 in the last 2 years. 3.51 yards per route run. Had a 7.103 cone, a 33-inch vert. He's a twitched-up slot receiver, really animated in his route running at the line of scrimmage, gets defenders to bite, and the best deceleration that I saw out of the FCS players. Nuance in his route running in all 3 levels, and some of the best footwork I've watched when I was watching the FCS. Only issue, he can handle rushing, he can handle receiving, he can handle kick returning and punt returning, so he's an all-around guy that you could get on that practice squad and figure out who he is. Only issue is that his long speed is questionable. But so if he's in that breakaway speed, he doesn't have that breakaway speed, but he may be able to work his magic in the gadget form to get up to 20 to 30-yard gain. But, somebody might be able to chase him down. I believe he ran a 4.75 40.
Okay. Love it.
Looks quicker on tape than 4.75 in my opinion. Maybe mid 4.6.
Love it. Owen, who's your next guy?
Yeah, so my final DB is going to be in our safety category. And this is somebody I came to very late on, and that's going to be Maximus Pulley from Wofford. Other than having an elite name, I don't know if he goes by Max, but it has it here listed as Maximus. But he's a safety. He's going to be more of the nickel player in the NFL. I think that's where he's going to be a bit more appealing to the previous regime because he'll be a fit better as like that zone cover kind of nickel. But I do think he has enough run support skill and kind of that hybrid linebacker style that you'll like from your nickels in this defense. But he is a 7.86 RAS player. He's 5'10", 197, 16 reps on the bench press with 29.5-inch arms. 38.50 vertical and a 10-inch broad, which is pretty good. 4.52 40 with a 1.52 10-yard split. His shuttle was pretty okay with a 4.25, but he had a decently bad 3-cone with a 7.27. He did perform on every single testing, though, so I got to respect that a little bit. He's a player, like I said, is a safety that will play primarily in the nickel, will survive a lot with his intelligence and IQ in lower zones towards the line of scrimmage, so which is why I think a lot of people are projecting him more for that nickel role. His lack of athleticism, I think, and size will have him struggle to be more of a man coverage player, which is why I kind of made that comparison of being a bit more of a previous regime style player. But he is a guy that I do think has the right tenacity, the right outlook, that if he wants to be more of a special teams type role, that kind of depth safety type that maybe can be the backup nickel, here's a player that may be some interesting nods towards if he ends up landing on the roster for like the 90-man or finding his way into some preseason games for the Buffalo Bills. I think he could find a role in this offense either as like a depth strong safety or as a nickel player.
And my my favorite things to look at, like as we go into training camp, are who are the undrafted free agents that we're bringing into camp. So, like, I love the shout out again. Like, okay, player probably not going to be drafted, but if he is one of the UDFAs that come in on the 90 player roster, those are players I pay attention to. Whether like I like Richard Guriage. I know that he never played.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he ever was on the 53. But I do remember that we were covering him on podcasts, and then he made it to the Bills 50, or he made it onto the training camp roster. And I'm like, I just cheer for those guys,
I agree.
right? Because they're going to have to work harder than everybody else to get whatever they have coming to them. So, love that shout out. Randall, do you have another skill player from FCS?
I do, yeah. I'm going to shout out Stephen F. Austin again, as Owen did, with Kylon Harris. 5'10", thin, 166 pounds. All 4 years of Stephen F. Austin. He had last 2 years have been both 1,000 plus, and each have 10 touchdowns. So over 2,000 yards in the last 2 years, 20 touchdowns, super impressive. 2.8 yards per route run, career 6% drop rate. Special teams guy. Pro day, he ran a 4.5 40, so good long speed. Also ran a 1.50 10 yard, so super impressive 10 yard. Had a 35-inch vert, 10-foot broad. Very possession receiver, really short, twitchy route running, matched with fluid catch and run. Screens are super elusive and has that burst to immediately get upfield and go and separate, get that first down. Intermediate is solid, creates separation on crossers, does a really good job at when he's doing inside routes to kind of push off at that stem to create extra separation on that interior, and then he has that burst to keep it going. Agility and some footwork need a little bit more work, but needs to be able to plant and go, but has that really good first burst, and he does it well. He can get onto a team as a special teamer and with a chance to be a wide receiver 5 or 6.
Love it. Love it. And Owen, you said that you have another defensive lineman that you want to bring up.
So actually, we're gonna go to the offensive line.
Got
for
it.
this one.
Nice.
Yeah.
There we go.
So I have a particularly good one, and it's not even. I think I'm gonna overshoot this podcast because we're talking about FCS players, right?
Yes.
Correct.
So we're going to talk about the Gene Upshaw Award winner from last season, which is the award handed out to the senior player who was the best lineman or trench player at D2. That is going to be Ferris State's Tim Anderson, a 6'6", 305-pound right tackle. He initially tried to transfer to try to get an extra year of eligibility and maybe move up in level of competition, being like at the top of D2 when it comes to his position, but that ended up falling through, so he went and participated in Ferris State's Pro Day. So he is eligible to be drafted in the 2026 NFL Draft. He did commit. And he ended up testing out, so again, 6'6", 305. Couldn't find an arm length on him, but 5'2", 440, nothing crazy there. 30.5-inch vertical, which I'll take that for an 8-foot-inch broad. 807 3-cone, but 35 reps on the bench press at the Pro Day. So a guy who has some size. I watched the game against him playing against Harding in the D2 National Championship game this past season. And Ferris State runs a lot of more of a spread offense, where Harding is more known for their flex bone and their triple option. I watched some of their players in the previous years because they were always like kind of a dominant program at D2 level. It's them, Colorado State of Mines, and Ferris State has been on fire recently. They were in the 2024 National Championship game as well. And I think that Anderson really showed out in that game as the National Championship. It's on YouTube, the full game, if anyone wants to watch it. He's their right tackle, number 72. He is 6'6", but he really looks flexible in his hands. He can get down low, able to fluidly move to the second level, keep a wide base when initiating contact with some of these defensive line players and moving them off the spot. He's a good athlete for that level. I don't know if he's going to be an elite athlete for the NFL, but I do think if he could be a guy that maybe could kick inside a guard or can keep his head above water athletically as a tackle, he could definitely be a bottom of the roster or rotational type guy. If you're looking for a depth offensive lineman, a player that is in an unconventional spot, but I do think we've been seeing a lot more D2 players kind of making the league, or at least making these 90-man rosters. So if you're looking for a guy to play some offensive tackle or some offensive guard that has experience in more of a translatable scheme, Ferris State's Tim Anderson is going to be a player that I think is going to pop for some teams, especially who are looking for one of those later, like, prior to free agent gems there.
Nice. Now, you said 6'6", 305?
Yeah, 6'6", 305. He looks pretty dense. I wouldn't be surprised if he weighed a little bit heavier than that during the season, or just looked thicker in pads, but I do think he could probably add a little bit more weight if he is genuinely at 305.
Well, and that was going to be my next question, is can he add weight? Because if you're playing guard, guards tend to come in at like 320 minimum, right?
On the heavier side, I think you're seeing a lot more that 310 to 320 range. When you get to interior blockers, when you start getting to like the around the 300s or 305s, is when you start seeing like, okay, that's a bit lighter than you'd like. But if he can eclipse that 310 benchmark, I do think he could be more inclined to moving inside. And I think getting him into an NFL level weight room might help him out with that some there, because he definitely does have a frame that doesn't have any bad weight on it. He's not like he's overweight or anything. He looks very lean and cut down and athletic build. Could probably definitely add some more muscle there. And obviously he's a workout warrior. You know, you don't get the 35 pound or 35 bench reps there just for not hitting the gym repeatedly over the course of your college career. You can't really train yourself up to getting that level of push, just for one cycle, especially when he's already looking to transfer and then last second made the pivot to the pro day. So for me, he's a guy who has some natural strength that could probably add some more weight through working out.
So Randall, do you have any skill players left?
I don't believe so. I think that other than the running backs that I just listed off real quick, no, not really. The running backs were a little difficult. The wide receivers were great. Tight ends were interesting for sure, but a lot of good guys.
Nice.
Any interest in any of the quarterbacks?
I didn't do the quarterbacks. I was offensive skill position, so I.
Is that not a skill position?
No. Cole Payton. Talk about lefty. That was it, really, to be honest with you. But no, I did not. I did not handle the quarterback personally.
What is our temperature on the Bills adding any kind of quarterback in general for this upcoming draft, or I guess offseason in general, because they signed a guy, but like they haven't really invested into a QB3 at all in recent years.
Right. We just never do it. Maybe this new kind of regime can do it, sort of thing, but it just seems like it's never an option with Bean.
Yeah, it's never really a priority.
But is it a priority for Bean, or like Joe Marino's take on this is that Josh doesn't want a rookie in the QB room? Right? So is it what Josh wants? Or, because I think it would make, how do I want to say this? If Buffalo drafts a quarterback, they need to keep him on the 53. Right? If you're drafting a guy, but then you put him on the practice squad, it's almost like you're wasting the pick, because somebody could grab him anytime.
Yeah, I was more thinking of in that UDFA camp, because we brought in the Shane Buechels, we brought in some of those other Mike Whites, the QB3 types that would then sit on the practice squad and be your scout team quarterback. I'm not saying I do agree that I think Josh having guys in the room that are going to help him is the most important part of it. I'm not saying you draft a guy or even sign a guy that you think could be an eventual successor there. I just want some fun quarterback play to watch in the preseason, selfishly, to be honest with you. Like having a guy that I'm interested to see. When Tyree Jackson was a quarterback for the Bills in the preseason, that was the most fun thing in the world. When he ended up being a tight end. So I think maybe that would have been their pathways. They thought maybe they can move him to tight end as well. So maybe a player that in the breed of like Taylor Green, sorry Randall, that might have a projection to more of a skill position player in the NFL would be more their inclination if they wanted to get anybody who previously played quarterback.
Well, I can see it and I would be behind it. That feels like such a low priority.
Ugh.
Like, I could probably draw up something where Buffalo could draft 2 wide receivers and both could make the 53. We could draft 2 linebackers, both make the 53. 2 corners, both make the 53. 2 linebackers, an edge, another defensive lineman. We could draft 1 or 2 offensive linemen and they both make the 53. So I see a lot of opportunity on the 53 to say, hey, let's go take a quarterback, but he's not going to make the 53.
Yeah, I wouldn't invest in actual draft capital here.
UDFA, I get it. For sure. Other than ruining the mood with calling Taylor Green in an offensive skill position. That was so rude. My God. Anybody know his ball security? His ball security is awful. Trying to turn him into a running back or a wide receiver is just going to make it harder. Might as well at least keep shooting the moon for a high upside ceiling quarterback, in my opinion.
Randall, of the guys you watched, could you give me, if you had to rank them, the top 5 in order of who you would want the Bills to land if you could make that list, or like who you're most interested to see put on a Buffalo Bills uniform come next preseason. How would you rank them?
For sure. So number one would be Jed Castles, because I think he's a polarizing, interesting player at 6'7", 245. And now that we are interested in somebody like Justin Jolie that we brought in top 30, seems as though there's a question about bringing in another tight end. He could be a 7th round UDFA option. So I'd go Jed Castles at number 5. I would go Colby Katzis at number 2. I would go Jeffrey Jamil, number 3. I would go Jack Neary from Monmouth, number 4, because I'd almost be like we would be getting another Jackson Hawes. So then we move Jackson Hawes, or we go Neary to fullback, and now you have that fullback, a fullback tight end hybrid, and then you also have a great blocking tight end as well at your disposal. And then number 5 would be my other Daniel Subkowitz, Illinois State, for the wide receivers. Running backs, I mean, there's who is it? Victor Dawson. If Brian Govan's still in the chat, from Illinois State. He's like a 5'10", 230-pound bowling ball that would be a fullback. He looked like he could do it. But these guys look more like RB3s than they would be sitting on the practice squad, so I'll just leave out running backs.
And I'm assuming Bryce Lance would be number 1 if you...
For sure, yeah. We just talked about him so much, I feel like I should have, get these guys spotlights.
Of the 5, like, back 7 players I watch, if I had to rank them, I think Demings would be 1. I'm not saying corner is a specific, like, big need, but the fact that you have Benford, you have Harrison, you have some slot guys with D. Alford, and CJ, what is it? Chauncey
Gardner-Johnson.
CJ GJ. I'm trying to remember what the abbreviation is for it.
Chauncey.
Yeah, Chauncey.
Yeah, Chauncey.
If you have those guys who are more slot guys, Chauncey could be more of a safety player. You need another outside corner, and I've been talking up like getting an Ephesians Prysox or Takario Davis kind of guys, especially Prysox, who's like, if you need like a dude who can come in and just be like a man coverage guy that can rotate in and be, if you want to go into like a dime set with 3 outside corners, if you have a bigger matchup going against that, I think Demings could be that level of player, just a taller, lengthier, bump and run corner that could fill out your depth, and you can definitely coach him up there after that. But especially with a position group where you're not really needing them to step in and be a starter right away, give them the CB3, CB4 reps. Then after that, it would probably be Jaden Duggar. He's only the guy I have relatively high draftable grade on, in respect to the rest of the group. And he's just someone who's intriguing to me because he has all the physical traits, could be more of the hybrid edge linebacker mold. If you were still looking for that, like, Jayshon Barham type player, that role specifically, but you miss out on him, or like a Trey Moore, you can go with Duggar in like round 5 or 6 and you'd be pretty happy with it. And you don't need him to come in and start immediately. You have guys already in place that, maybe we don't love the fit, but can prevent him from being forced too quickly into a starting role. Then after that, I kind of got to go with Gerard Washington for me personally. He's just a guy that I think I could really see being a special teams type player, someone who can come in and even if he doesn't earn a role as your corner player, or can be maybe a slot type, a 6-foot slot type player in this defense. But I definitely do think can carve a role as a special teams player. I think he will be on a roster as a special teams player next year, if not a practice squad, no doubt for me. But right behind him would be Williams, because I do think Declan Williams as an inside backer, coming downhill, maybe is a little bit more physically, not as physically dominant as Duggar, but definitely going to be able to fit into this defense a little more cleanly. And then Maximus Pulley, just as like if you want to go with more of a slot player with a safety role, that could be someone you really look for. But he was definitely down in a distant 5 for me compared to the rest of these guys. The other 4 guys got me real excited for some of the opportunities there.
Peeking. It's adorable.
Hi, Milo.
Well, I was trying to figure out what was going on, and then I realized the cat was coming up behind you. I was like, something's moving behind Owen.
This is usually you hear his brother, but this is the other one. He's quieter, but more of the cuddler.
Nice.
Got it. Well, I will see Owen before Epic Mock, but like Randall, this will be the last time I see you before we go through Epic Mock.
Yeah.
So We've got 32 podcasters mock drafting against each other. It starts on Thursday. So Thursday is round 1, Friday is rounds 2 and 3, and then Saturday morning is rounds 4 through 7. So, Owen, what are the trade offers looking like in Epic Mock right now?
Well, we've kind of hit a barren wasteland where none of the other GMs really want to trade up, especially in that back end of the first. I'm kind of leveraging a lot of me want to come up and get Ty Simpson type beats to a lot of these guys, and no one's real super excited for that. I've got some in my ear that are like, hey, we'll see, top of the second round type guys who haven't given me any hard like offers, but we'll be like, we'll see how the board falls, and if we feel like that's our best opportunity, we'll come and talk back to you. The most I've gotten was when I reached out to the Giants GM about a potential trade for Dexter Lawrence. We got some hard numbers there. It's a bit rich for my blood. I think in reality, you would probably make that trade after the draft, more into like the dog days of the summer where you're looking to get guys to kind of come in and be a body, get a better sense after your OTAs and things like that, what your defensive line room's looking like, and if Dexter Lawrence is really trying to get out, or if this is him just being, making noise for some reason, whether it's contractual or something else. I'd be curious with that, but like the fact that you get 26, a young player, and a good starter, which is what it was which was the counter offer, I think is a bit too rich for me. So right now we're kind of in the wait and see mold. I was entertaining going for a trade up and asking for some trade up opportunities, but I just don't think that we have the draft capital to really maneuver that. I'm looking either to stick and pick or trade down, if anything, for the Bills.
But if Jordan Tyson is there at 20?
That is tempting. I'd be curious if the Bills would be interested in making that move.
Yeah.
Because, I would, just because he's my number one wide receiver and he's like a top 11 grade on my board, that if he's there, like, you maybe take that swing, and it makes the rest of your wide receiver core really fit in nicely. With him being like your Z or your X, and you have DJ Moore as a Z, like they could work off each other really well. With Shakir in the slot, that would be really interesting. I'd be curious I think he's another player that, like, between him, Peter Woods, there's some players that, like, if they came to 26, there would be an opportunity for, like, just stick and pick BPA that are falling for one reason or another. The Bills are in a good position to do, like, the Philadelphia Eagles thing or the Baltimore Ravens thing, where they just take good players and figure out the fit later. So if he's at 20, it might depend on who else is on the board. If it's him, Peter Woods, some of the other guys that maybe, or like an Omar Cooper Jr., some other guys that were there that are going to be more rated highly for me, or who I think the Bills might be more interested in. Casey Concepcion.
There you go. He wasn't going to say his name until I started smiling. I
had to throw you a bone. There's some guys there that, if there's an abundance, I think they'll be more inclined to sit and hold pat, or trade back than anything.
Yeah, and also, I don't think Jordan Tyson's going to be there available at 20, by the way. He's doing his workout April 17th for teams, and that's right before the draft. So if anybody has question marks, if he runs his stuff, does the drills, he's not getting to 20. Everybody's going to forget, get the Men in Black pen, and draft him in the top 15.
Yeah, and one of the things I've noticed, like, is we've done, more mock drafts. So Casey Concepcion is going a lot higher than the simulators have him going. So, there was a Carolina mock draft where he went, is Carolina picking 19th?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he went 9th.
Flipped.
And then 21 to Pittsburgh is a common spot. So, like, and same thing with Omar Cooper, right? Like, the Jets seem to be getting Omar Cooper in a lot of mocks with their second round 1 pick. I don't see a world where the wide receivers are dropping even into the mid-20s.
Those guys?
I think the wide receivers are going to be cleared off the board by pick 25.
I disagree, because I do think Tyson is going to work himself back into that top 20, top 15. So I do think that this draft, because it's not like crazy top heavy, it's not top heavy in the wide receivers, where I think 3 in the first 22 picks are legitimate. And then you have Omar Cooper. You have some people that are going to like Denzel Boston because the NFL is staying high on Denzel Boston. So I think there's enough guys where I think personally we will have either Omar Cooper Jr. or Casey Concepcion available at 26, in my opinion, and we should, in my opinion, take one of those guys. And I would be happy with Omar Cooper Jr. I'd be happy with Casey Concepcion. I think those two will be available, and that's who we should take.
There's a long list of guys that I'd be happy with personally if we took my 26. I know, like, we did a mock last week, and Jim almost took my head off because I took Jace Basantis at 26. But, like, I would be happy with Jace Basantis at 26. I'd be happy
Yeah, because he's a plug and play. And
yeah. You're immediately getting a starting left guard who's 21 years old, who started 3 straight seasons at Texas A&M.
Right.
Who is just... He's an instant starter.
Did I bite your head off? I don't even think I commented.
I bet he did. I bet he did, Owen. I'm on your side.
I can read your facial expressions. Jim.
Okay.
Just like,
No. You're right. My facial expressions would have been a surprise. But I am all in favor of drafting starters.
Could you add Osiris Torrance to a package for Dexter Lawrence?
So that was what the package was. It was 26 Deion Walker and Osiris Torrance was the offer made for Dexter Lawrence.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's too much.
I would say it's actually almost up. So Dexter Lawrence is a really good player, but I wouldn't package one and Torrance. It would just be
wouldn't you?
It's Torrance. The Giants need offensive line help, and they're not going to be able to draft a player like Torrance in round 2 or 3.
That's why I think if it was post draft, because in my head, if you're gonna trade, if you make that trade post draft, like you trade Torrance, Walker, and maybe a future second or future first, if you even want to throw a first in there, to make that the same thing, but it's just a 2027 first, because that way you can then stick and pick with 26 to get like a Basantis, and then have, because if you trade Torrance, you now have Alec Anderson at left guard, and then who the hell knows at right guard, and you don't have a first round pick to replace that player. I could understand it if it was sending out, you draft Basantis at 1 with your 1, and then you have Basantis at left guard and Anderson at right guard, shipping out Torrance to upgrade nose tackle, and now you're okay with that because you were expecting to come into the season with right now with Anderson pegged to be a starter anyway. You're not losing a starting player that you weren't already ready to fill and replace, and then Torrance is going to be up for contract, so you're maybe getting your explanation for taking on that contract with Lawrence is that you're getting cheaper with not having to pay Torrance a year out.
Right. See, I feel like a fair would be a 2027 second and Torrance, straight up right there. I think that I understand packaging Deion because then where does Deion go, sort of thing, but I feel like in capital purposes, a 2027 second carries a lot of weight in 2027, and that's what NFL teams think. Yep. And then Osiris Torrance could get it done.
But Bean doesn't trade his future year draft picks.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He'll trade the 27 picks during the 27 season. But he's not trading the 27 picks during the 26 draft.
That's why I think this trade would have to be after the draft. Like, it would be a summer trade.
Yeah.
Right.
But has Buffalo ever acquired a player on draft day with a draft pick trade?
On draft day, I can't remember. I know Diggs was leading up to the draft with that was current.
Right. No. Like player in the package, you mean?
Well, right. So, like, are we like sitting there on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday during an NFL draft, and Brandon Beane said, "I don't want to draft a player. I'm trading a draft pick to get a veteran." I don't think.
Not that I can recall.
No, I don't remember Beane doing that. Because I'm managing San Francisco, and I got some of the same offers. It's funny. I got some of the same offers you did. But I was like, no, I'm not trading for a player. Like, I don't know what John Lynch does, but we've had a few podcasters drop out of the mock, so we've had to shift a few GMs and stuff. So I'm doing San Francisco. And we'll do that right here on the main podcast. Okay, well, I can talk. Like, this is my only chance to talk with you guys about Epic Mock, right? So
right.
I appreciate us taking about 10 minutes. But Randall, do you want to let everybody know about all of the podcasts that you are doing this week and in the upcoming future?
Yeah, at Randall Cypher. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I do a podcast on Mondays with Do Champions at 7:15, 8:15 Eastern, 7:15 Central. Tuesdays, I'm here with Owen, Jerry Ostrowski, and Jim, where we go do some Buffalo Bills, but a lot of scouting and NFL draft contact. We got Epic Mock coming Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, which very excited for. Then we're getting close to the draft as well. I also work with Team MBS Media. I write for the Arkansas Razorbacks and the Buffalo Bills, and I'm also part of their NFL Draft Central, which is on Wednesdays, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. Tomorrow we are going over quarterbacks, and just getting ready for the draft. We are weeks away until we begin 2027.
Yep. And Do Champions will have the Epic Mock podcast on Saturday.
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah, so you can find me here on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights outside of Epic Mock Draft days. So I'm gonna be on live with Jim, or at least covering with Jim's brand Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday this week. So you'll be seeing a lot of me live streaming this week for between today talking about the FCS players the Bills could target. Tomorrow, I think me and Newt are doing first round grades and seeing where we differ when it comes to that. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'll be on Overreaction Buffalo and the Do Draft podcast. Do Champions, to do the mock draft for the Epic Mock and being the kind of like head focal point of the GM room for that. But everywhere else you can find me, not just this week, Twitter on Weekly Huddle, YouTube at Weekly Huddle, where I've posted a couple top 10 rankings, especially with centers and nose tackles were the two videos I did. We did a couple weeks back, we did a Family Feud for the NFL draft, which we're going to be doing another one of those for after the NFL draft for some of those like post-draft questions. So I'm excited to get into that, and I'm going to be pumping out some shorts of that last episode we did relatively soon. I already have everything loaded up and ready to start editing, so you can keep an eye out for that as well.
Yeah, and I want to first thank Randall and Owen and Jerry. This Tuesday podcast during this draft cycle has been awesome. We have one more next Tuesday. And then, are we really? Okay, actually, I guess we have two more Tuesdays before the NFL draft. So I had to think about that one. So I want to thank you guys for doing this. This has been a lot of fun because I catch some of Randall's podcasts, but I'm usually podcasting, so I can't watch them, right?
Right.
So it's been nice to create the content because I got into this because when I was watching other Buffalo Bills draft podcasts, I wasn't getting the information that my brain needed. So I just created Draft Professors. I can do that. And this definitely came full circle. So I also want to let everybody know that after Epic Mock on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, at 9 a.m. Eastern on Sunday morning, Jack Brentnall is hosting a UDFA show. He will only talk about players that were not taken during Epic Mock 26.
I'm so jealous of that show. I want to be on it so bad.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
That sounds so much fun.
Oh, and if you want to hop on, we do need a second person. So be careful what you ask for.
I'll let you know.
Be careful what you ask for.
We'll go 6 straight days of podcasting.
I was going to say, I would do that, but I'm Monday through Saturday. I think I need my Sunday.
Yeah, and we need you to stay on good terms with your wife. Speaking of which, did you guys see right before this podcast that Mike Vrabel was caught holding hands with a reporter, and they're both married?
I know.
Oh my God!
It was Diana
Rossini. Yeah, Diana Rossini.
So Diana Rossini's married. Mike Vrabel's married, and they were caught holding hands with each other
at like a villa that's like rooftop, $2,500 a night, romantic destination, and then they both had their stories that they went with a group of friends, and then they ran into each other, and then there's witnesses that are like, nah. So I don't want to laugh at it because they ruin it, because Diana Rossini is a good inside reporter, but don't cheat. You guys are idiots.
Yeah, so Owen's like going to look it up right now. I can tell the look in your eyes, like you're checking it out. Yeah,
it is.
All right, that's that. Let's just listen. if that tosses a grenade into the New England Patriots chemistry for this
Yes.
upcoming season, I'll take whatever I can get.
Yes, all day.
I almost like quote tweeted and said something, but he didn't get caught in a massage parlor.
No, that's just their owner.
Yeah, just the owner.
Right. But these things, like, it's funny because these things go away. Right? Like, okay, so he gets caught, but it'll go away. It won't be news within 48 hours.
Oh yeah, but it still might
Right.
be internal, because it's sketchy. So, I didn't know that.
That's crazy.
You see, Brian, I
I did
didn't
not
know
know
that
that.
either. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll have to have Brian come on sometime and explain.
No kidding.
And Lily, it's good to see you. Okay, well, for Randall, Owen, myself, for the 90 podcasters at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you tomorrow night on Owen and Newt's podcast. Enjoy your Tuesday night, everybody, and we will see you soon. Thanks.
Welcome to the Draft Professor channel, home of Epic Bach 26, April 9th, 10th, and 11th.